Hello, everyone, and welcome to I Never Knew by Life Coach Maureen. So happy to have all of you here this week on our newest episode. As you all know, I'm a huge mental health advocate. I think we're in a shift and we're all talking about it now. And that's why I'm so happy to have my next guest. Matthew Dickson is here. Wait till I tell you his story, everyone. So, Matthew Dickson bicycled across Canada at the age of 20, but shortly afterwards, he developed schizophrenia and was forced to alter the course of his life for many years to get through the disease. While working on his recovery in his home country of Canada, his heart went out to people with mental illness in developing countries as they had it much worse than he did. After successfully recovering from schizophrenia, Matthew now helps people with mental illness in developing countries so they can get access to basic mental health care through his Mind Aid platform. Welcome, Matthew.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks so much for having me here.
So happy to have you. The first thing that struck me was you recovered from schizophrenia. People don't think about recovering, right? From mental illness. It's always like, I'm dealing with, I'm coping with, I'm struggling with mental illness. So let's start with your story and when you were bicycling across Canada and how this all came to be.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Eastern Canada in a small town on the coast, and I had a pretty idyllic childhood. Nothing exceptional happened to me. Nothing very bad happened to me. It was pretty average overall. I had no idea I'd be bicycling across Canada so many years later. But I went off to university, and I noticed some changes happening in me, and I guess they weren't that intense, but this would have been 1989 into the early 90s. And back then, we didn't talk about mental health much. I'd learned a little bit about mental health in health class in high school, but we never learned about mental illness like OCD or anxiety, depression, schizophrenia,
Yeah.
antidepressants, antipsychotics. They were around back then, but I'd never heard about any of that stuff. So I had about one symptom creep up on me about once a year, roughly, through my 5 years of. I was taking engineering, and but I could still do stuff. I was getting mostly A's at school. I mean, I biked across Canada feeling that way. Uh, Somewhat. I was on the university rowing team. I did a triathlon. I was living on my own. I never had to get a student loan, but in the middle of it, so for the bike trip, I was taking engineering, but my heart wasn't really in it. I was a smart guy, but I didn't really know what to do with my life. I didn't really feel pulled in any one direction as far as career goes or education. I was taking engineering because I didn't really know not what else to do. I probably could have done a lot of other things. I just Other people say the same thing when they go to school. It's just, well, I got into this. I don't really know how I'm doing it, but that's what I took at school, and that's what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
My husband, who happens to be an engineer as well, said the same thing. He's like, I don't know. I just went into it, and there I am, 40 years later, 30 years later. Especially, it's an engineer thing. You just go to engineering, and then you're kind of like, I'll figure it out after that.
Yeah. Yeah, another common one is, oh, you're good in math. You should go into engineering.
Right? Oh, it's a
Yeah.
joke. It's a joke in our household. It is a joke. Oh my gosh, I love it. So, what'd you
So,
figure out?
well, I my mom had sent me an article from the newspaper a year earlier, in I guess it would have been 1990, and the headline was "You can pedal across Canada," and it was about this group of people. Well, it's an organized trip, different people each year that bike across Canada, and I saw the article. And I mean, you see articles like that all the time. Somebody's climbing a mountain or rowing across an ocean, doing this, doing that, hiking the Appalachian Trail. And I thought, oh, that's neat. And I put it in my drawer with some other stuff. A year later, I was going through my drawer and I saw the article again. And this would have been in the middle of my third year of engineering. And I looked at it and I thought, huh. And at the bottom of the article was a phone number. There was no internet then. And within minutes, I found myself phoning this phone number. I was 19. I never did stuff like that. I wasn't really an athlete of any kind. I ran a bit. I played some sports, played some golf, but I never trained for anything, any sport. And anyway, I got on the phone, talked to these people, and they sent me some more information in the mail. And it just snowballed. When actually, skip ahead for a sec, when I was on the trip, many people said, once you get that package in the mail with more information, that's what really hooks you. And so anyway, the package came in the mail. I read it. And I'm like, look at me reading this package in the mail about biking across Canada. And all of a sudden, it's what I try to tell people is you you don't have to have everything figured out. You can have an idea or a goal that you want to go for, but simply take small steps. And that's what I didn't know all this at 19. For many years, I read self-help books in the business and career section about mindset and growth and success and entrepreneurship. And I had none of this knowledge at 19, but I found myself doing this at the time. I simply, to book a spot on the trip, you had to send $100 in. The $100 could be refunded if someone else wanted to take your spot, if there was someone else to do that. So I sent $100 in the mail, and all of a sudden, in like November of '91, I'd signed up to bike across Canada. So I started telling people, I've signed up to bike across Canada, and there's all this buzz around it, like Matthew's going to bike across Canada. Matthew's going to bike across Canada. You can hear it go through the grapevine. What's Matthew doing? Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Matthew's going to do this. It's exciting. And I hadn't biked an inch until April. The training's April, May, and June. It's called Tour de Canada, and it's you can look it up online. The training's April, May, and June, and then the actual trip is July and August. So I did the training. The first week is 3 bike rides in the week of about 10 kilometers, a half-hour bike ride roughly. So I did that. The next week I did 15 kilometers 3 times. The next week 20. The next week 30, or 25 and 30. And after 12 weeks of training, 3 months. That's it. Just 3 months of training. 12 weeks. The last week I was biking 100 kilometers 3 times a week. It's amazing how quickly you can increase your cardio like that. And by no means was I ready to do the Tour de France. By no means. I was slow, so slow compared to them, so slow. But I had the ability to just sit in the seat for a long period of time.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
I
pardon
just
me?
I just think it's incredible. What a big leap too. I mean, my gosh, you just without hesitation, and this is just something I'm gonna just interrupt for real quick is, you know,
Yeah.
it's you there was no hesitation, and I think half the things in life we don't do is because we just hesitate. And you were like, nah, and you put that article in your drawer and it meant to stay there. It could have been thrown out, it could have, turned into a paper airplane, and then it popped into your existence again when you were ready. So I always say when we're getting ready to be ready, and boom, it was there. And I love that you just embraced it. You're like, I wasn't an athlete. It's not like I was in triathlons or anything. And you just went for it and took the baby steps to get there. So, wow, you don't think you were ready after 100 kilometers? 2 times a week, 3 times a week? I'd be dead.
Yeah, I will. I will just. I have to say this because one of the things I've been trying to do to encourage people to do stuff like this, or to do anything that they might be afraid to do, is for me, biking across Canada, it wasn't as hard as I thought. It's daunting. I was leading up to the trip. In the back of my head, I was thinking, Matthew, what are you doing? Seriously, what are you doing, Matthew? And it's daunting. I was thinking, who signed me up for this? You did, Matthew. You did.
Yes.
But
The voices, the little angel and devil on the shoulder, right?
yeah, yeah, but it wasn't crippling anxiety. I could still go through my day and do stuff. It was just a background. It's sort of hard to describe, really, but anyway, once I was out there biking, I was thinking, man, this is a lot easier than I thought. Why isn't everybody doing this? This is so much fun. A couple who biked around the world. They left from California. The book was called Miles from Nowhere. I read that in the 80s, having no idea I'd be doing something similar. And she said people would ask her, "Why did you do it?" And she said what she really wanted to tell people was because it's fun.
Right?
But she said she felt she couldn't say that because you sounded too flippant. But it's fun. It was just fun. I loved it.
Oh, just
So anyway, I got up there, did the trip, and yeah, that was. There's part of me is thinking, why am I doing this? Because I could be hit by a truck. And sure, lots of people, not everybody has made it across Canada. Some have died on that actual trip, let alone other people biking across Canada on their own and dying too. It's so I don't know. I did it.
it's not without risk, and you still, even with the fears and even with that little voice in the back of your head. And that's a good thing to tell people. When you have a positive mindset, it doesn't mean we're Pollyanna and we're like, yeah, everything's great, there's no worries. You still have those worries in the back of your brain, but it's letting those positive motivational thoughts come in front of those other thoughts, right?
Yeah, yeah. You can still. That's what I try to tell people. You don't have to be 100% confident. Some people say you just need to be 51% confident, just over 50%, just enough. I argue
Yes.
you could I argue you could be like 1% confident. Just have 1% going out of your comfort zone. A little bit of just going. I mean, it all started with just a phone call. I simply picked up the phone and asked for more information. That's all I did. That's
Wow.
something a lot of people can do. There's actually a great book on this. It's called The Motivation Myth by Jeff Hayden. And he says people think they need to wait for this lightning bolt of inspiration or have an aha moment, and then they'll know that's what I want to do with my life. But he says don't wait for the confidence to start to take action. He says what happens is it's not the confidence that makes you take action. It's the actions, the small steps. Everything, every pyramid was made with just one stone, lots
Yes.
of stones, just one at a time, slow and steady, just small micro work, all added up together. Take all these small steps, give you the confidence. They
Yes.
build confidence. Take a small step, you'll get a bit of confidence. Look at me, I just did that. Then take another
Right.
small step, and they all. I've been I on another note with my mental health advocacy work for Mind Aid. I started Mind Aid in 2018, and I can feel my confidence growing because this has been at the end of my recovery, and I'm able to notice more things about how I'm feeling and stuff. With schizophrenia, it's very in its worst. It's very chaotic. It's hard to really know how you're feeling a certain way. It's just very chaotic. But these last 4 years of building Mind Aid, I mean, the first step was phoning a website designer. Can you make a website for me? I was scared to do that. I was never I was never on social media before, and one by one, slowly over months and months, I got on, first Facebook, then YouTube, and then one at a time after that. And each time it was, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. I don't know if I can do this, but you just go. Uh, Marnie McBean, the Canadian Olympic rower, she says, "Do things that make go into your do things that make you uncomfortable, but stay comfortably uncomfortable."
Yes, I love that. And I'll go with Mel Robbins, who says the 5 second rule. If you feel like doing it, act on it. Just do it. Just do it. Go up to that person. Go try that thing. You just picked up the phone and made a phone call. So I love that 5 second rule. So I love what you're saying. Let's go to how you started recognizing the symptoms of schizophrenia and how you got diagnosed, and then how you advocated to get into recovery, or figure out what worked for you.
Yeah, so I had some symptoms creeping up, but one a year through university. Things like I felt disconnected. I felt like I was watching TV, sort of thing. I just felt disconnected. It was like I described it at the time as things were like things visually were like they were in two dimensions instead of three. It felt like I was just cut off, like I was watching a TV. On TV, you can see things, but you can't interact. You can't jump into the screen and talk with the
Oh,
people. Things like that,
yeah.
and things like I felt like I had a brain transplant. It felt like all of a sudden I was thinking somebody else's thoughts. Like I had his brain in my head. I was thinking his thoughts, and he was making me do things that I didn't want to do. Things like that. But I could
Wow.
still do stuff. I mean, I was feeling like that while I was biking across Canada.
Wow.
So
That
they
had to
weren't.
be so difficult to figure it
Oh
out,
no, no,
especially not knowing.
it wasn't that disabling. I mean, I could still do stuff. They were relatively mild compared to what was going to come down the tubes. And anyway, so actually my very first year of university, I went to the university health clinic and I said, I'm low on energy. And they sent me for blood work. The blood work came back fine. And they said, focus on the future, and sort of sent me out the door in a nice way, but they just didn't know, I guess. And so I thought, okay, so that's what I did through university. I just tried to focus on the future. And I talked to some friends about how I was feeling, but no one said, "Oh, you should go see a mental health specialist." I mean, none of my friends knew what that was.
Yeah.
So anyway, my last year of engineering, just before I was supposed to graduate, I had a suicidal thought, and I thought, that's not good. So I went to the university health clinic again, this is a different city. I switched towns and universities, and they took me to the city hospital, the psych ward, and that was my introduction into the mental health system. They
Wow.
tried me on 6 or 7 of the older antipsychotics for schizophrenia, and none of them worked. They tried me on one that had just come out that year in 1994. It worked, although, I mean, I'm still on it today, that same drug. I will say it worked glacially slowly. I
Wow.
noticed one small improvement in my health every single week for my entire recovery. In 2012, they actually started happening more frequently. Like actually, once a day, sometimes twice a day. So it's yeah.
What kind of medications? I know lithium is one of them, I believe. What are some other medications that you and I are in the same age bracket? Because what it sounds like, because when you said 89 and you were 19,
Yeah,
I might
I'm
be even.
50.
Oh, okay. I'm 2 years older than you, so great. But yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. We didn't talk about mental health back then. It was just push it down, shut up, and move on and deal with it. ADHD was known as hyperactivity, and they threw you on Ritalin, and just said this kid is way too active. They didn't really have these things, so back then when you finally realized these things were not normal and you got introduced to the mental health system, was their first go to talk you to into doing the medication first? Did they talk about therapy? What was their first steps back then?
Well, I'm no expert on schizophrenia, even though I have it. I that's actually one thing I'd like to learn more about is other people's experience with it, what it's like. A lot of us just don't talk about it, and there's not a ton of literature on it out there. There is some, and
Yeah.
it's getting better. Um, for me, so anyway, with schizophrenia, from what I know, it's you generally need medication. I'm sure there's some people out there who are doing well without it. I don't know that for a fact, but I they they put me on medication quickly, and I'm fine with that. It because I noticed an improvement in my health with it. It's like I would have done anything to stop the pain. It was tough to be. I mean, at 20, biking across the country, wanting to do more fun stuff like that. Like again, I had no specific plans for my life, and I was sort of drifting a bit in engineering, even though I was still doing well in it. But like most people, I wanted to have a good life. But 22, just to be, oh my gosh, you're on a medication. Oh, what does this mean for the rest of your life? And plus, you're so depressed, you couldn't see a positive out of it. So it felt like a real ball and chain. But at the same time, I was like, get that pill into me. It was one of the few things I could do to stop the pain. And
Yeah.
so I faithfully took it. So
Wow. And I know that hallucinations are a big part of it. The voices, is that something you experienced as well?
well, I don't know how many people know this. I try to throw the stat out. 75% of people with schizophrenia hallucinate, and those can be any of the five senses: touch, taste, sound, sight, smell. But I never did. I was in the 25% that didn't.
Oh, wow.
I ne- yeah, I never had, excuse me, I never had any problems with substance abuse. For some reason, that just was never a part of my interest or chemistry or whatever you want to call it. I never had any inclination to do any of that stuff. I
I
was very
read
thankful for
that.
that.
I read that on your paper, and that jumped out at me because, Matthew, when you're anytime you have something that you can't figure out and you don't know how to deal with, we usually self medicate. And especially when it's something that's, you know, pretty intense as schizophrenia. And I feel that bipolar and depression and all of those things are all intense. And you didn't go there. No alcohol, no drugs, no, eating it away. How did you get through? Just the medication, was that effective for you, or did you also get the therapy and counseling as well?
So I went to counseling for about 7 years or so, and it was okay. For me, what really helped me was books on mental health tips, people skills, mindset. I started, I remember walking into the self-help section in 2000, I think, excuse me. And I was nervous to be in there. Oh my gosh, look at me in the self-help section. What am I doing here? But I wanted to go in. I was just fed up. Like, I want to learn more stuff about how to get better. And so I walked in, and after so many reading so many books in there, I was like, man, this is great. Everybody should be reading this stuff. And then years later, I found myself more often in the business and career section because all these top CEOs are trying to figure out the best way to motivate their staff, uh, create better mindsets for themselves, confidence, success. And so I don't really, in my speaking, I don't really speak much about different types of therapy or different types of medication. For me, I talk mostly about just your own. There's so many things that you can change in your mind that everybody has that are common to everybody, and they're all factors. How much stress do you have caused by people? Psychologists say that so often when people come into them, they often talk about the people in their lives giving them problems. So if you can lower people stress, that's just one less thing for your brain to have to process. And that's the stuff I tried to read about. I was reading books by Navy SEALs and Verbal Judo by George Thompson. It teaches people how to deal with people like a police officer with words, not weapons. Police officers are trained in verbal judo. That book by far is the best people skills book I've ever read, and I've been trying to tell so many people about it. Verbal judo. Please look it up.
I wrote it down. Who wrote that?
George Thompson.
George Thompson,
It's
verbal
called
judo.
Verbal Judo: The Gentle Art of Persuasion.
Love that.
And if you don't have time to read it on my Medium page, writing platform, I've got an article there with a cheat sheet for it. I sum it up the main points.
I like cheat sheets. I have focus issues, so I like the cliff notes of everything. So that's fabulous. So I love this. I love this, and that's where I was going was, your methods with your mind aid and how you help
Yeah.
others in the countries where they don't have the counseling or the ability to get maybe even medications. So the first thing is lower your people stress. So what else?
So I will throw Dr. Daniel Amen's. He's got a CD called the Brain Warriors Way Music Program, and it's a CD, but you can get it digitally, like on Amazon or whatever. And for me, I find it easier just to put on in my car when I'm driving. And there's songs there for creativity, for focus, for relaxation, for anxiety, for motivation, for gratitude, to wake you up in the morning, for a midday boost, put you to sleep at night. And it uses brain waves like alpha, delta, theta brain waves to help just recalibrate your brain for just overall general health. It's for absolutely anybody. There are YouTube videos with those same kind of things, alpha, delta, theta, beta waves. But I'm on a YouTube video, I don't always know or trust the person or the who put it up there. I don't know what they're, but Dr. Daniel Amen, he's been around for decades. He's got tons of books. He's got a quite a wide presence, and I trust him. I've been listening to it since 2015. I've still improved, so it hasn't made me feel worse.
I love that.
It's
I think that's great. And I think music speaks. I think music is healing anyway. So I think to add
okay.
that.
I've got to take a sidestep here. I love dancing. Oh my gosh, I love dancing. And there was a study done in New York City with dementia, and you can look it up online. They took two groups of people. One of the groups did with older people. They did traditional dementia prevention exercises like crossword puzzles, learning a new language, learning a musical instrument, golfing, walking, sports, exercise. The other group danced. And the first group, they improved their chances of dementia or lessened their chances of dementia by like 20%, roughly, say. The group that danced lessened their chances by like 79%, I think it was, 78%.
Oh
And they
my
gave all these reasons
gosh.
for what dancing does. Oh, yeah. When I dance, to like I put on my favorite songs and dance, the feelings that go through my body, the I don't know what chemicals, hormones are going through my body, but my heavens, I feel on top of the world. And I'm not, I'm not super flexible. I can't break dance or do all sorts of dancing. I just lip sync and just rock my heart out.
I love it. I have a theory. I have a theory with my psychology background, and my theory between the psychology and the spiritual is anything that we do with ease, we do it better. It's almost like, we always do this overthinking thing. We always make things more complicated. We always, have to make a plan for everything. And I think dancing is that thing where you don't have to think. Just move your body, and it's easy. And maybe that's the science behind it.
Well, in the Depression and the World Wars, I hear that they packed the dance halls to help build people's morale and help get their mind off of the horrors going on. And
Yeah.
I would love to see those come back. I'm trying to where I live. I'm trying to get some dances put on, family friendly or non-alcoholic sort of thing. 6 to 8 in the evening, 7 to 9 sort of thing, and just get together and have some fun. Just get a speaker and laptop, iTunes, whatever, YouTube music, and just
Yes.
just have fun. I'm trying to get
Yes.
that going.
Just
I'd
think
love to see
in
that happen more often. We need
right.
more. We need more. We need more community building and having fun together. We're also isolated.
Just sort of the old time, just good fun, just getting together and hanging out. And it also increases the dopamine, and I think that's our happy drug right there. That's the only drug we need. And that community and the hanging out relationships and feeling connected to people is a drug in itself. And then just free flow with the dancing. So great side note. I love that. And I just think music is so healing. I think anything that you go through in your life, there is a song for that. I think that's the relation that I feel. My father was in the American Songwriters Association, and he's very, very, very musical. I think that's my tie to music. He can play any string instrument plus keyboard and all that. And my father used to say, Maureen, the thing about lyrics and music is someone is writing this thing and they feel it. So when you listen to that song, you say, oh, someone gets it. So there's no more feeling like I'm the only one and nobody else understands, even if it's just a song. You don't have to meet someone that went through it. But hopefully, on I Never Knew, you'll hear someone that has been through what you've been through. But isn't that the truth when you've been through something? I remember after my divorce, I was pretty angry, and I would listen to Alanis Morissette, and that was like my angry music. It's like every phase you have like some different music for your life.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, it's incredible what it does. I I just am on top of the world when I'm dancing. On a side note, I've read that for people, often people have made money like as a side gig simply putting on dances.
Oh,
Charge $10 at the door or something, get 50 people in, make $500, rent a
yes.
community hall or some room for like $100, $60 for 2 hours or something. And that's apparently a
Yes.
thing. You can look it up online, articles on how to do that. Like
Well,
a speaker and a laptop. Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah. And
If anyone's
also,
looking for a side hustle.
there, there you go. Well, and also social media is a benefit for that because Meetup, they do have meetup groups, and you could just go on and create a dance meetup group in your area, and all the marketing is out there. You don't have to go door to door or anything like we used to put a bulletin up. So I want to know. When did it come into your awareness that these people in other countries don't have the access that we do, and why did that become a passion for you to help them?
So, in my worst year, someone saw me walking down the street in 1994 and said that I looked like I was walking through a world of flying glass. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it felt. It felt like I was being shot at, bullets going off, bombs being thrown at me. It was terrifying. It's like walking across a tightrope over shark-infested waters. And I knew that that wasn't true. Some people with schizophrenia, other mental illness, maybe, they really believe that, say, the CIA is never like that. Uh, for example, I saw a James Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan. It literally felt like there's bullets being fired in the theater. There's that intensity, but I knew that wasn't true. I knew I was just watching a movie in my home in my where I was living. But my heart went out to people who live in actual war zones, who have mental illness to go through as well, or extreme poverty. I mean, Scott Harrison of Charity Water, he helps people get clean water. And he says that 700 million people don't have clean water today. It's wherever he's gone, it's always the women and girls fetching the water, even still today. Some of them have to walk up to 8 hours a day to fetch to fetch filthy water on their back that's killing them, giving them diseases and parasites, and it's so sad. And he says when often clean water is right underneath their feet, 100 feet down, 200 feet down, they simply drill a well, boom, there's your water. It's so sad, and he's doing a wonderful job in trying to help more people with that. He's been
That's
a real
great.
inspiration for me.
Great.
But it wasn't until 2016, 2017, and I saw this piece of content appear in front of me on the web. It was a TED Talk by Vikram Patel, and it was talking for the first time about mental health in developing countries. I'd never seen anything like that before. I'd never gone looking for anything like that before either, I will say that. But a year later, I'd made my website, mindaid.ca, and I, as far as I know, it's the only website of its kind in the world. It has, if you go looking for all the groups helping mental health in developing countries, they're scattered across the web. It'll take you a while to find all the groups working on them. I've got as many as I can find, and I keep adding more as time goes on, all on one site. And as far as I know, no one else has done that. And I'm very happy about that. The website, I'd
Yes.
like to see it get a lot more traction, and I'm hoping that it could be a hub for the cause in the future.
Yes, I love that. Well, I have a Facebook group. You can throw me in there because I have a lot of international members. We have almost 3,000 members. It's called Mindfulness and Positivity Seekers, and it's a Facebook group, and I have so many international members, and I agree there are so many in other countries because they don't always have the freedom to speak of it like we do. We have a lot of freedom of speech here that I don't think people understand other countries don't have.
Yeah, yeah. It's so I'm the good news in this is that so that TED talk by Vikram Patel, he said that for decades there had been manuals and still are today on how to help someone where there's no doctor around for hundreds of miles. How do you treat a broken leg? How do you treat pneumonia? How do you deliver a baby? And in the 90s, he
Gosh.
said, why don't we do this for mental health where there's no doctor or hospital around? So they did. and they've perfected it. They now have models of basic mental health care that are low cost, proven effective, and scalable. And the World Health Organization is trying to figure out the best way to roll them out to the masses. In the meantime, I found
Nice.
10 nonprofits that are delivering these models of basic mental health care that you can donate to or fundraise for. And beyond that, I found other groups helping beyond those 10 that are doing more things with mental health in developing countries, like awareness, political advocacy, that sort of thing. You can't donate or fundraise to them, but there's more there on my website in the resources section, and I keep finding more as time goes on, which I'm incredibly happy about.
Yes, 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 yes. And we're gonna definitely share your website. So if anybody does want to help, then they can go. And I love the name Mind Aid. You know, we had back in the what was it? I'm gonna date myself and you right now since I'm only 2 years older. But Band Aid, you know, where we really helped a lot of things in the 80s was a lot of aid. So I love that we have Mind Aid. I think that's a great tie to what you're doing, and that it's effective. I love that everyone's sort of on board with helping each other now, and I think that is, oh, I'm so happy. I still think we've got a lot of work to do. Suicide prevention, that one's near and dear to me. You know, I just, as a life coach, I just never want, I don't want anyone to ever feel they don't have somewhere to turn. And I'm so happy we have this new hotline now where instead of 911, it's, I went blank.
988.
Thank you. 988. I'm like 811. Okay. 988. I'm so thrilled. When that came out, I thought, this is good. This is good. This is urgent. And what we need is the government to embrace that there are all different kinds of mental health workers, and we can all help. We don't have to be psychiatrists or psychologists, or, you know, there's many ways. I've had hundreds of clients and they've changed their lives. So it's proven that life coaches can make a difference. So I just think that the government needs to embrace and reach out to all healthcare workers because the need is there, and we will be there because it's what we're passionate about. And you as well, going through what you've done yourself, having that knowledge. You said, I'm not an expert in it. Yes, you are. When you have something and you've experienced it firsthand, you are an expert. I will fight you to the death on that one because no one knows better than you do. So I wanted to ask you, so the self-help books, have you written a book or have you thought about writing a book?
I've thought about it. So many people have said that for so many years, and I just haven't. It hasn't chased me down. It hasn't beckoned me over to write a book. But it's always in the back of my head. Back to Scott Harrison for a second. He wrote a book called Thirst about his whole experience with the charity, and he said a decade or more went by, and he said he never felt the call to write it because he said, I felt like I was still living it. And I feel the same way. I feel like I've been living this, and the chapter isn't. I think I'd be very close to writing a book, but there's still stuff formulating in my head of like how to write it, what to say. But I think about it a lot about how to write it. So yeah, I'm
I love that.
hoping that someday I'll write it.
Oh,
So.
you will. You will. I have no doubt. I'm just I'm gonna prophecy you're gonna write it. I know you are. But I love that you said that because as an author of two books myself, it's like I couldn't have written that 10 years ago. You know, I was still going through it. Like you said, you have to go through it and through its completion. And then you receive that inspiration where it's time, that intuition where it's like, okay, it's time to put it all out there and release it. And so I think really, and what's funny is even when you do that first book, well, that's just one chapter, and then your life keeps going. And you're like, oh, okay, book two is like the next chapter. And it gets fun, and then it kind of becomes sort of this addiction of, you know, just releasing it, especially when you're helping others. That to me, when you get the feedback, it's like, oh, geez, I have to write this thing. So I love that you said it hasn't chased me down. And when you're ready, it's going to just, you'll know the time. You'll just wake up one day. You and I were talking about like technology. I This podcast, it was my goal back in January, and I didn't start it till the end of June because I was scared of technology and thinking this isn't going to work. Even when I have dogs barking and sometimes it's echoey and there's break, I don't care. I'm being authentically me, and my guests are authentically them, so we can overlook all the technology stuff because yeah, who cares? We don't have to be perfectionists here. So if you were to sum up, what is the one thing you never knew that now you look back at 50, half a century, to look back and go, oh, guys, wait till you're 50 and this is what I never knew?
I never knew that we are capable of so much.
Mm-hmm.
So much. There's a quote that says, we're not scared of our failures. We're scared of how unbelievably powerful and successful we could be. That's what we're really scared of, how great we can be.
Yeah.
Navy SEALs are taught in their training. There's a book called Unbeatable Mind by Mark Devine. He trains and creates Navy SEALs. They're taught in their training that they are capable of 20 times more than they think they are. They're taken to the brink of physical and mental exhaustion, and someone comes up, they want to quit, and they say, the trainer comes up to them and says, "You think you're done? Not only do you have double what you've got right now, not 5% more, but double, you've got 20 times more than you think you do." And then they proceed to show them that in themselves. They say, "No, you're not quitting, keep going." And then they go on for like 20 times more. And I feel I was shown that in my recovery from schizophrenia so many times. It's just relentless. And
Wow.
uh, I have two audiences. For people who haven't gone through something as bad as that, I try to explain to them like how bad it really is. But I do want to say that for people going through it who already know, I want to tell them that it's possible. It seems impossible, but that's just it. It seems. It actually isn't. You can keep going. And I try to offer people hope. But that's what I never knew. I had no idea. For one thing, I had no idea that life could be that bad. But I also didn't know we have an equal and matching and often overpowering just courage to get through it that can beat it. You have just a thousand times, but if it goes 1,000 times into the negative for badness, it's over 1,000% into the positive for what we've got inside of us. All the strength, confidence, courage, and uh, Carrie Fisher, the Princess Leia, the actress from Star Wars, she had bipolar, and she said that people should be given medals for going through mental illness. Medals. And I mean, all the people out there today who are going through mental illness and or other bad things, they should be given medals. Literally, like meet with your prime minister, president of the country, whatever, and have an award ceremony. We're pinning medals to your chest for bravery, for courage, for determination. I had no idea that we were capable of all this, but now I know.
Yeah, and I think the bravest souls come and ask for the greatest pain and the greatest challenge. And the greater the pain, the greater the growth. So I think that in itself is the reward because the most enlightened and self aware people I know are those who have been through the mental health struggles or trauma or anything that really, really could break us. And survival of humanity is adaptability and the ability to overcome. And that's why I called this I Never Knew, because it's this hope for those who are going through something, but it's also this camaraderie through all of us to say, we were there and look at us. We're so much better and we're loving. We're just loving people. And I think that's the cool part when you have these struggles, they could break you. You know, you could be bitter, not better, and we aren't. We're better. And there's this connection. Every guest, I always say there is a thread of love that I have for every guest and the commonality that we share because we empathize with one another. Because struggle meets struggle, and overcoming meets overcoming. And so I just flip and love it. So I want to ask you if you did hear the podcast. Oh, it's 4:44. I love it when I see the numbers. Um, If you're marching down the downtown city, or you're in your city, 100,000 people behind you, you have a banner. What does your banner say about the movement you have for the world?
Hmm. I would say for I have I try to be an advocate for schizophrenia. I want to be an advocate for schizophrenia. I could help many people with that. I try to focus the most on mental health in developing countries, and I'm struggling to come up with a good one here. But right now, I do have T-shirts, and they say uh, you can help people with mental illness in developing countries, and that's I don't think that's a good one for this question, but
How
that's the
about
best I can come up with right
how
now.
about they need us?
But that's good. I like that. I will say that I try to use the phrase "always stay hopeful."
That's
Always
it.
stay hopeful.
I
Always stay hopeful.
love that.
You, you never know what tomorrow may bring. You never know.
You do not. And that's the thing why for me suicide prevention is so important, because every problem is a temporary problem. There are no permanent problems. There's only permanent endings and permanent things that it's not time for us to go yet. And we've got things to do here no matter how hard it gets. We've got things to do here. The semicolon. We're not done yet, right? It's like, let's keep doing this. Let's just keep pushing forward
Yeah.
and reach out, reach out to others. That's my banner is, we're all saying the same thing, whether it's Matthew talking about schizophrenia in other countries, or it's, someone identifying people with LGBTQ, or it's someone who's been through sexual abuse. I mean, we're all saying the same thing, and it's love and help one another. Let's just be there for each other. That's the key. You can get through this, or always stay hopeful. What a perfect banner that is. So, on our lightest note, how I always end it is what is your shameless self indulgence? And I know you're going to say dancing, but I'm going to make you come up with something else.
Shameless self-indulgence. Hmm. Oh, I'm struggling with this one. I. Oh my gosh, this is tough. Shameless self-indulgence.
And it can change. I can tell you mine right now is M&Ms. So it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be anything like super profound, but what is your thing? What is your self-care? What do you do that continues the health of your mental health to continue on your recovery of your schizophrenia? What is the thing that you do to just get away and be you and stay grounded and centered?
I being in nature really helps me. Being with on the beach, and I know this is not self-indulgent or shameless, but I really do like getting out into nature, into the woods, into the trees, into the forest, hiking on the beach, hiking mountains, and I could do more of that than I do. I live on the ocean. I like being near the water. That's I started a nature YouTube channel so that people could go visit these places and show them to them, just in
Oh,
places where I live here. And that's not shameless or self-indulgent either. I,
no.
I am, I am trying to, I am trying to do better with my diet, and I've fallen off the wagon in the last few years. Maybe that was COVID, but I'm eating more. I'm a sucker for chocolate and candy and ice cream and
Yes.
squares and cakes and cookies and brownies. I'm not much of a chip or salt person, but that sugar, man, that gets me.
I am with you. Like, I don't do soda, but I that's exactly me too. The candy, the chocolate candy, especially dark chocolate. Oh my gosh. And then I like to say, well, it's antioxidants, so it's good for me. So it makes it a lot easier to, sort of cheat. But I think the bottom line is do what we love. So I'm curious because I am so jealous that you live near water. I'm in Arizona in a desert, and I aim to move somewhere with water. Hawaii is just my absolute dream place to live. So what's your nature YouTube channel called?
Uh, it's called Special Spots. If you Google Special Spots, Matthew Dickson, it'll show up on YouTube. I've got links. If you go to mindaid.ca in the About section, there's a link there to all my links on Linktree. And you'll see all my links there to all the stuff I've got going on. And it's Special Spots is down near the bottom of that, I think. So
I love it.
it's
See,
people are
you
welcome.
you embrace technology. It's all there. You made it all accessible. You could do it. We are an old dogs, but we can learn new tricks, Matthew. Well, I thank you so much for being here, for your story, for being just a bright light in this world. You are just a ray of sunshine, giving hope because everybody needs to always stay hopeful and helping those who don't have access to what we have here that we're so blessed with in Canada and in America, some of these third world countries. And we're all one on this planet. So I'm so grateful for what you're doing for these people. So I appreciate you and I thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Maureen. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Good. I'm glad that you had fun. Excuse me, guys. If you need to reach Matthew, you can always reach out to me as well if you don't have those. But I will have all of his links in the when we go live in his promo. I'll have all of that stuff for you. And if you do want to reach out to me as well, I'm at lifecoachmaureen.com and all of my info is there. And there's also a contact me place where you can comment, you can, talk about the podcast, you can talk about anything about my guests. And if you want to be a guest, you can also reach out. So I thank all of you listeners. Leave a 5-star review. Come on and tell your story if you're ready to be vulnerable and help others. And I wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful day. And until our next episode, thank you guys.